Welcome to Tell Me About Your Mother, a podcast for counselors by counselors, where we explore issues related to our profession, filtering them through our professional and sometimes personal and humorous lens. Each episode, Evan, Eli, and Melissa offer food for thought by bringing their experience and humanity to help you strengthen your practice of psychotherapy. We would love to connect with you at contact us at tellmeaboutyourmother.run.
Here's another one.
Melissa's gonna love it.
That's what when I was messing with this, like right when I downloaded it, I was like, "This is gonna be so fun to just fuck with Melissa on this sidebar thing." She's gonna be talking, I'm just gonna be hitting these buttons, and she's not gonna find it funny at all. Or she'll find it funny briefly, and then but
she'll be like, "Grow up."
Yeah, I think this will be cool. This will make everyone's lives easier to do this.
Yeah. Bring us into the 21st century.
Yeah. I don't really know. God, I have this bug bite from, I guess, soccer. You're a Southern boy. You know what chiggers are, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you get into those?
I think. You know how they bite you like
bad.
right behind the knee, like right on like the tendon.
Right.
Oh, that reminds me. So the worst experience I ever had of that was I was in like where my parents lived down at the lake access. This guy was mowing this strip of grass, and he like got off his mower. I stopped. I'm wearing shorts. I talked to him for like 20 minutes. He's just ranting about his grass cutting, and for the next like week, I had probably 15 chigger bites on the worst spot, like all those spots, like the Achilles heel,
where the skin's the thinnest.
Yes, like on the top of my foot, on the back of my knees, on my balls, and on my hamstrings. Like,
so they were all over.
And you. It felt like a hotness to it as well. Like it was like I had to like sleep with a fan directly on it. It was so bad.
Have you ever had yellow jacket?
Yes.
Sting?
Those suck too.
Those are bad.
Because we were exploring a nest when I was younger, and like we thought there were birds in there, but I guess yellow jackets use it afterwards. like if a bird's home, they like leave it, then the yellow jackets come in, and there was a huge swarm of them, and we got eaten alive.
Oh yeah, they will hunt you down.
Yeah. What are you thinking about talking about today, maybe?
Maybe spirituality. Like I went to that class Monday and was on the panel.
Oh, yeah.
It's at a Christian college, and 5 counselors in training all identified as Christian. Faith was important, and some of the questions were, how do I maintain my morals if they don't align with the client morals? So I'm wondering, like in counselor education programs, are we uniform? Or are the folks who want to do Christian counseling, who are may be motivated to impress their values, their morals on the clients, are they just self-segregating to Christian programs, counselor education programs? And what's our licensure board, and what's ACA? What's KCREP doing, to verify that we are creating person-centered counselors that aren't Christian counselors who are trying to save souls?
I mean, I have a lot of questions about the term Christian counseling, but the first one being, how does that not directly oppose the ACA Code of Ethics?
Well, it does.
Right.
But we still license people.
That's what it's like, it's just confusing because like the ACA clearly is talking about like having a broad spectrum of openness to anyone's spirituality or lack thereof. And then you have people that like strictly do Christian counseling.
Right.
I don't understand, because like it goes against the sheer basis of what counseling is, which is to not project any type of really like value script or morality onto the client. It's for them to like explore that themselves, and to you to be like a little more than an observer, but you're not supposed to like infiltrate their value scripts, I don't think.
Ideally.
I mean, I don't.
And another question was burnout. And I tried to swing these two back together when I was talking to this class. Is they were concerned about burnout. So I'm like, person-centered means the client is doing the work. The client has the answers. Our job is to help the client discover their own truths, their own answers. If I'm a Christian counselor, if my job is to offer solutions and fix their problems, of course I'm going to get burned out. I have to solve every client's problem.
Yeah.
Person-centered is a good way to save my own ass and not burn out and fry and go batshit crazy.
Yeah, it's how well I'm doing can't be measured by the outcome of a client. I mean, if it is,
Right.
then that like really perpetuates burnout. Like anyone I talked to when I was earlier on and more exposed to like newer counselors, especially when I was doing like that supervision stuff and treatment, that was like one of the main parts that like promoted their own misery, was they were fixated on client outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a long road.
So if the Christian counseling is impressing our values on the clients, I think that's unethical. But a Christian counselor is just unproductive. It's a recipe for burnout and failure because you're having to work too hard.
Absolutely.
And it is, whether they're saved or recommit their soul to Jesus Christ, their personal Lord and Savior. How's that therapeutic at all?
Yeah, I mean, it also is scary considering if a client has characteristics of identity that don't directly align with a Christian,
or may directly oppose the Christian values.
Yeah, like
divorced or queer or abortion.
Yeah, like anything interesting, basically.
Anything that will commonly bring clients into counseling.
I mean, it actually brings up it brings up this. I think I had sent you that interaction I had with a referral request of a counselor that was. It was written confusingly, but it was like basically there's a teenager that identifies as gay, yet the grandparents are paying for the counseling and they want a Christian-based counselor. And I was like, what? Like, are we just adhering to the payer? Like, oh, we need to appease the payer because they're the finance backing. They want this, therefore. It's like, well, who's your client? The grandparents or the adolescent you're seeing? The adolescent you're seeing is the client.
Which is another ethics conundrum.
And it's like, what does it mean, like Christian-based counseling? How extreme is that? Is that, in all seriousness, it could be fucking conversion therapy. Or it could be someone who's like a lot more lax and not as like forthcoming with their, it could be a spectrum.
Well, conversion therapy can be a continuum.
Right.
In worst case scenarios, we're going to fix it. You're not really gay. You're just confused. Anybody who's even complacent with that concept is a co-conspirator. They are guilty, in my mind, of reparative therapy.
I have a question about that too. I don't know much about conversion therapy. I mean, I know the function of it, but the only thing I've heard, and I don't even know if this is true, so bear with me, is that like they will wrap you in a blanket.
Well, I've heard of a couple of theories that do that as a rebirthing exercise. Sometimes
is that like
it's
old
a carpet
stuff, or
yeah, it's like restarting your life born again.
Insane,
it's like coming.
dude.
They're trying to mimic coming out of the vagina all over again. Mm-hmm.
That is crazy as shit. Wow.
But I don't think that's a standard. practice with conversion therapy.
Well, my sister used to drape a comforter over me and hold me because I was claustrophobic, and it didn't make me gay. So I don't know. I don't think it's very effective.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's
That
like
is the worst
voodoo.
feeling.
Claustrophobic.
Is anyone, like, when you're younger, like maybe like a bigger, like an uncle or something, like draped a comforter over you and just like held you into it?
I don't remember that ever happening.
Oh man, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Or like put you in like
I was the older brother.
Oh, you were doing that to the younger ones. No, I was like, or I'd be like
Farting on his head.
thrown into like a. We used to have like a towel hamper thing, and I would be like put in it, and she'd sit on it, and I'd just be like stuck in there. It's awful.
For how long?
I mean, not hours, but like it felt like hours. Probably a couple minutes, maybe.
So how do you feel about tight spaces now?
I just, I don't have any.
You just don't.
No. Wait, what were we? Oh, we were talking about conversion therapy. Yeah, so that's like old age. Like, what time period are we talking about? Because it probably happened like 5 minutes ago too, depending on.
Like the 70s.
Okay.
I think.
Now is it more like indoctrination attempt?
Well, it's looking at blame. Was your father? Was it an absent father figure? So let's find you a father figure, and that'll fix your queerness. It could be a cold absent mother, which is very Freudian. It's like, oh, we have to heal your mother wound, and it's like,
and that'll shift the sexuality. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're not really gay. You just have a problem.
Well, I guess that's it's progress. It's just not very good progress.
What?
I'm glad that we're not putting people in pillowcases anymore.
Trying to rebirth them.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is based on this pathology that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's the risk. Like, that's why when I saw that referral, I was thinking of those things. Like, how, in what world is? I mean, who knows? Even if, I mean, there's very well that client could become Christian, or maybe is questioning if they want to be. Who knows, right? There's plenty of people.
Well, they're very often already Christian.
Right. So it's like
the folks who aren't Christian are less often traumatized, less religious abuse.
Yeah. But it's like, how in the world, that's what, I guess if I take my focus away from the client and the parents, my bigger concern is what kind of training did that counselor have to even think of requesting it in that way, right? Like,
which is where we started, which was a Christian counselor education program.
But it's also like, well, I guess they don't identify as a Christian counselor, or maybe it's their fucking nephew. You know, I don't know. But yeah, and I have the personality of, I get fearful of like echo chambers and no one saying anything, so I always throw something in there that is.
Is that similar to claustrophobia?
Yeah, I start to feel intellectually claustrophobic. But I'm like, I'm sure people will be annoyed with me, but like, someone needs to scroll through here and see that at least that there was someone else that said like, wait, what?
About the Christian counseling?
Yeah, about the request and like how the client identified versus the grandparents. Like, there was so many fucking things wrong in 3 sentences that I had to say something.
Is that the one where you pushed it back? Like, I have a Muslim client who's looking for Muslim therapy, or is that a different one?
No, that's what.
Is that the one?
Yeah, that was. Really
I thought that was brilliant. It's like, oh,
it's like, would you do that?
Everything.
Yeah.
But is the client right? Is the client crazy? Is the client pathological? So much of my focus with clients is helping them figure out what's my story and what's everybody else's story. Where do they align? Where do they diverge? And what do we need to set on fire?
Yeah, I mean,
what's total garbage.
It's a search for your like more authentic identity, less like enmeshed with all the expectations and projections of others and society and religiosity, all that stuff. That's the most freeing part, when you can get to. I mean, I think it's a lifelong process, but I've noticed that within myself, like being able to detach and like truly ask myself, what do I think? What do I believe? How do I feel? Has been one of the more freeing parts of like my exploration.
Like going home for Thanksgiving.
Yes, it's
Is
just
that
been
required?
like
Is that optional?
it's been so freeing. Like, you know, like you tell people will say, "Oh, you can do whatever you want with your life." It like sounds nice, but can we? If we don't like truly like scrape off the rust of family or school or our locality, like all these things that like create impressions upon us that we're not probably aware of unless we do therapy. Like we really can't do anything we want. It's like these weird invisible like lassos that
Right.
that we're not aware of, and it creates like this claustrophobia that I think
Yeah,
probably
we're
manifests.
the Mustang who wants to run wild, but 12 cowboys have a lasso around my neck, and 12 cowboys are keeping me stable, and I can't run, and I'm choking.
Mhm.
All of those nooses need to be thrown off my neck or chewed through, or
Yeah.
it takes a lot of time. But if clients come to counseling, the last thing we need to do is put one more noose on them, which is the whole trap of reparative therapy. If a client's queer and we're like, you shouldn't be, that's just one more rope. And we have more power and authority than everybody else. It's like, oh, the counselor said I'm fucked up, so it must be true.
Yeah. And then that creates like this sense of wanting to protect in me. Like
Yeah, it's hard not to get into a vigilante mode and want to put my cape on.
Yeah. I guess what I can do is try to like ruffle some feathers here and there when I see like referral sourcing that seems a bit skewed in that direction.
Right.
But and again, I don't really say stuff in those platforms in hopes to like change the person who's posted its mind. It's more like, who are the people observing this? Like there needs to be something that opposes, because that's the fear of echo chamber. It's like no one wants to like go against, and then it just gets more and more hyperbolic, or the normings of the platform become more
And
pointed.
that's brainwashing and indoctrination. We hear the same story over and over and we go numb. Like, maybe that's not bullshit. Maybe that is what everybody else is doing.
Exactly. Yep.
I think part of my task with clients, starting out, have they had a history with counseling? What went right? What could have been done better? And kind of look for, are they confusing talking to a pastor or a youth pastor and assistant pastor? A lot of folks will label that as counseling.
That's the other
And
struggle.
For decades, I didn't examine that. It's like counseling with who? What's their criteria? Their training, their skills, qualifications. Oh yeah, pastor. Asterisk.
Yeah, we're kind of screwed. It's like, okay, the counselors are misrepresenting counseling, and then the people that aren't counselors are claiming to be counselors.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Right.
who the hell's a counselor?
And then a school counselor who is not a counselor.
Sharpens pencils.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do character development and, moral
Proctor
education.
exams.
Yeah. And go into classrooms and do some wonderful exercises, but they don't have time. They're literally not allowed to do therapy. But
I'll be nice to them, Eli.
Be patient. But so many folks are coming in, they already have these nooses around their neck, these lassos. Other counselors have put those on there. Like, religious abuse is real. And do we assess for that? What have they been told? What's their expectation? It's just sad to watch a classroom of counselors in training already in that mindset that Jesus Christ has called me. This is my mission. This is what God wants me to do.
Yeah, and I think too is
ooh.
when we hear the term religious abuse, it's easy to think of being like the very extreme, like a cult. I mean, I've had clients that only went to, I don't know, Easter Sundays, like, and they still have ripple effects of like shame because of that. It doesn't take, you don't have to be in like a silo in some weird place in Waco, Texas, right, to like experience religious abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're exposed, you believe it. All it takes really is like, oh, I'm wrong because this, and they say this. Like that's kind of it. It doesn't have to be that extreme.
Have you seen the documentary Sound and Fury?
Mm-hmm.
It's about deaf society, deaf culture, and corrective measures. So they cover families, or in the documentary, they have families where mom and dad and the children are all deaf, but a cochlear implant can give the children hearing. And this argument about whether that's right or wrong, the deaf grandparents are saying that's wrong. Sign language is a language. We can function. We're not broken. We're not damaged. We just can't hear. And then the other side of the argument is, but you can hear if you just have this simple little procedure, and it needs to be done early in childhood. And they're like, but give the kid the chance to make that decision and know it's too late. It's like, what is the right way? Who am I as a hearing person to make that decision or get involved in that argument? And like with queerness, is that right or wrong? A lot of straight folks are getting in that argument and insisting that they have authority. They're not consulting with the queer kids. Should we consult with deaf kids to see if they want hearing? It's messy.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that.
It's a really cool documentary. Sound and Fury.
What's it on?
I don't know.
Okay.
I saw it in school.
You should, this is
Dr.
not really...
Abrams has it.
Oh, really? Gosh, I bet we could easily get him on here now. It's like,
yeah,
Dr. Abrams, click this link, and we're going to talk to you for a minute.
You're invited. Grab your headphones. And he has good headphones.
Oh,
he's ready to go.
That reminds me of something completely unrelated to what we're talking about. Have you seen The OA?
No.
Okay.
I've seen it advertised. I've seen it pop up. Is that Netflix or Max or something?
It's Netflix. It's written, directed, and the main actress is Britt Marling. She's phenomenal, brilliant. She just came out with a new series on Hulu. It's called like Murder at the End of the World or something.
Okay.
I've been watching that. It's also fantastic. Highly recommend. Anyway, conversion therapy. But yeah, it's I am grateful that I've been able to cultivate a role with therapy where I don't pressure myself for their outcome or take responsibility, and I think it has a direct correlation on their own perceived like empowerment to write their own story.
Oh yeah.
So
and efficacy. It's like we're not creating a band of dependent people.
Yeah, and it's I think that process for me is healing because I was let down by counselors throughout my life. It wasn't like Christian based, but I think it was probably a lot of counselors
narrow-minded.
Yeah, it was a lot of counselors didn't have very good training or like self-reflective ability or mentorship, and they projected I think unintentionally, they projected a lot of their value scripts onto me, and it was like pretty directive and critical and like parentified.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurt. It didn't help. It actually hurt. So it's healing yet hurtful at the same time. To like it's cool to be able to provide something different to a client, but it also reminds me of the many experiences I've had where I didn't have that.
And I think it's kind of like the career counseling. You're not a peer, you're an expert.
Mm-hmm.
The parentification, it's like I'm the wise one and you're the little ignorant minion who needs my...
Yeah, with like that weird joining that happens with parents and counselor.
Right.
Where we need to like fix this kid. That could go for like sexuality or behavior or addiction,
mm-hmm.
anything, religion.
I think addiction counseling's a similar process to reparative therapy or...
Yeah,
it's like,
I haven't thought about that, but yeah.
It's not enough. You can't get sober for anybody else. So do it. This is the teaching. This is the morals. This is the value. This is how your family's suffering.
Mm-hmm.
sit with the client. What do they want? What do they need? What do they deserve? What are they fighting against or for? The liberation is where I've seen a lot of people have success. Like, had somebody wrestling with nicotine and cigarettes. So we were talking about breathing and lung damage, and I'm like, have you ever been to yoga? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, what? Walk me through the breathing exercises. What do they do? So when he finished, I said, sounds a lot like lighting up a cigarette. And he's like, oh my God, I've never thought of a breathing exercise. I'm like, so if it weren't for the nicotine and the tar and the chemicals and the carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, it's like, what's wrong? Oh, I'm doing a breathing exercise with the cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
It was like mind blowing. He's like, are you trying to encourage me to smoke? I'm like, no, I'm trying to flag a positive in this negative. So every time I do a breathing exercise, that might trigger a relapse. Oh, this is like smoking, sucking it deep and filling my lungs. It's like, that's what I need. So how can I repeat that? But they're stuck on the focus, on the package, on the cigarettes. These are bad for you. Okay, replace it with something good.
It's making me think of too, like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, getting them to a place where they're not burdened with that should, must, gotta, have to. I'm a horrible person if I smoke. If you get that weight off of them, they can find a lot of strengths and resources.
Yeah,
what were you going to say?
It reminds me of like reflecting on my past experience with counseling, like as an adolescent, the immense power that would have empowerment and like exploration that would have happened if we, or if the counselor like stopped trying to like behaviorally assess addiction. There was so much underneath to unpack and treat that like I had to find my own tribe to do. It wasn't like a therapist came and like, you know, kind of put out a roadmap and we worked through it together. Like that could have, that's what's so mind boggling, is that could have happened in my adolescence. But I had to like,
in an ideal world,
literally forge my own path, find a tribe of people that had probably been failed by therapy as well, or not had access. And we did it together. And it took many more years. I mean, I think it's like a slower recovery in 12 steps, like a slower process because it's not as intentional and you're not spending like an hour one-on-one with someone and all that. It's more like abstract. So I think it gets to the same part of like beginning to look beyond the use of a substance and seeing what's underneath the current here, what's pushing this iceberg along,
and not let the solution be crowded out by the problem.
Exactly.
If that's all we see as a problem, we're going to miss the solutions.
Yep.
But like the smoker, he's looking for tranquility. Thinking about cigarettes made him calm. Smoking made him calm.
Even having like in a car, you have your window cracked or down a little. Without a cigarette, that's kind of calming. But I remember when I used to smoke, like months after I quit, I would have my window cracked a little bit, or like just have the wind in my hair.
Classic smoker style, yeah.
It was like, and that's like having the hump. Like I think there's a lot of associations that are just they're not as pointed to the cigarette, right? It's like the window's down. That's calming in general, but it's usually down when I'm smoking. It's like,
right.
But
all
I'm
of
also
these
breathing.
Associations can be recreated.
Yeah. As I have a Zen in my mouth.
Right now?
Yeah. I fucking love nicotine, man.
Well, at least you're not smoking, right? Woo!
Hey,
celebrate that.
I heard one study, that's all I'm looking at, about nicotine being good for like your like neurons and shit. So I'm like, all right, that's all I need to know.
That's enough. My bias is confirmed. I'm good to go.
Speaking of Zen cans, I was on a date last night. We did like I think I sent you a photo of the painting.
Oh yeah.
And I used a Zen can to like create weird patterns. I was like spinning it around, and then I put it in the middle, and then like an hour later realized it was stuck to the canvas. So now there's just it's like
it's still there.
yeah, it's like a mixed media now. There's just like a Zen in the middle of the canvas. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't notice that it was a Zen.
Yeah, my sister and Colby were a little buzzed the other night, and I went by. They were at my parents', and they were like asking to do some Zen. And I gave them some Zen. They were acting like all cracked out. The next day, they bought packs of Zen. They've since thrown them away, but I was like, oh shit, I just got them hooked on Zen.
Is that just nicotine? I've never done it.
Yeah, it's just nicotine.
But that's what people are needing and wanting.
Yeah.
How do we replace that?
Yeah, that's
Right.
it. So that comes.
You can do it by climbing 1,000 feet in the air on a rope.
Yeah, what I think too is like of the like 10, because I have like about 10 people that came into recovery around 18, 19. We're all in our 30s now, and I think all of them use some source of nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
And we had all quit for years as well. Like, that's the funny part about addiction. We all had like probably years away from cigarettes, went to a bachelor party, smoked a cigar, and then that was like 6 years ago. And then you can just kind of watch a progression of nicotine use just from that one. Like, it lit our brains up like a Christmas tree.
Right.
And it was like the same thing. It was like, oh, well, okay, I had a cigar, and then 2 weeks later, oh, maybe I'll try another one. And then a month later, oh, I haven't had a cigar in a while. And then like it becomes this thing to where the progression continues. And then when you're talking about like a year, now I'm smoking 4 cigars a week, and it's just like, wow, well, yeah, this is addiction. This is like the exact same thing that happened to me when I was 14. But it's interesting when you look at like recovery circles, people in either early or long-term recovery, like there's usually nicotine in some form.
Oh yeah, find a group, a mutual support 12-step group without coffee and smoking is amazing.
So I missed the culture, like, because I entered in like 2011. I think like even like 5-10 years before, it was like smoking meetings,
Right,
like
yeah.
in the building. Like you would walk in and it would be like a plume of cigarette smoke. That would have been fucking awesome, dude. I would have loved that.
And even the non-smoking meetings, the parking lot was a plume before and after.
And it's different now. Like it's the vaping has completely, like nowadays when I walk by someone who's smoking a cigarette, it's kind of like, oh, interesting. Like I don't see it often.
Because there are very few of them.
Yeah.
In the U.S.
Oh yeah, Greece. When I was in Greece, cigarettes everywhere. But yeah, I used to love going into Waffle House like 2 a.m, smoking cigarettes.
But talking about reparative therapy, it's very similar to addiction counseling. I'm triggered, which is me thinking about it, man. How do I avoid that?
Yeah.
And their strategies are very similar to addiction treatment, residential treatment. It's like indoctrination, reprogramming, training, strict.
What do you think, like, with, like, a lot of the counseling, like, maybe in the past, like, probably pre-2000s or even sooner, like, a lot of the counselors were people in recovery, even, like, obviously in addiction world, but I think probably I'm thinking a lot of counselors were in recovery, treating people that weren't even for addiction. And so they're kind of, like, manifesting that type of approach to their client care.
You mean non-addiction counselors?
Like people that have lived experience of addiction. Like I'd say there's a hell lot of them, and you're talking about
firsthand. It would be parents or spouses,
and then their implicit biases impacting how they might go about interacting with like someone's sexuality.
Right.
Like approaching it like a behavioral thing. Like I think those things have ripple effects based on, oh, I had this process with recovery, or my father never changed his behavior, and I'm still angry about that. Like all these subtle implicit biases and like personal experiences influence how we engage with the client.
Well, with everything, like having a client who's a police officer. What's my arrest record? What's my traffic record?
Yeah, do I feel like do I feel like I'm going to be in trouble when he shows up in his uniform?
Or having a client who's a dermatologist, but I get from the beach toasty brown. How do we keep ourselves professional and not project our biases on our clients? And it's everything from shoes to plaid shirts and smoking and sun damage.
And yeah, it takes talking like this, but the other struggle with like group supervision or even just like peer supervision is like, who are we surrounded with? I mean, that's like a very, very important part to it that is hard to like control, like contain or control. Because then you can get in like the group think or the echo chambers of that. Like, because if I have like the 3 closest counselors in my life that I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're like Christian-based counselors, right? So where do I go from there? I'm kind of like a lost sheep. My shepherds, guide me off the cliff.
Right.
So it's
and it is, I don't know how we're going to integrate, but we do need diverse voices, with that peer supervision, or just who do we staff cases with? Where do we get some peer assessment of my performance? How am I doing?
And being honest, I think, is like such a crucial part. That's not something like a mentor or a supervisor can make a supervisee do. It's like a personal. I think that's why vetting for like client counselors in the early education is so important. It's like, is there like this innate characteristic of the possible student, like where they're eager to self-reflect and challenge and grow.
Right.
It's like, that's why in multicultural class, like I would say crazy shit, and like people would be like, dude, what? They'd get mad at me. I'm just like, hey, I thought it, and that was my programming, and I want to talk about it. Like, I might look like an idiot right now, but I want to learn about it. I'm not gonna just like, bite my tongue and go talk to my family about it later.
Just to fit in, save face.
Mm-hmm.
And about that growing, I've been in a lot of interviews with master's students applying to the programs. The vast majority of them will say stuff like, I want to help people.
Yeah.
AKA, I have a gift and I want to share it. Which is beautiful, but it's like, it's not very, self-reflective. It's not very growth focused. It's like, oh yeah, I'm already done. Now I just need the degree and the license that I can distribute my wisdom. And
my question is, well, how does that mean that they show up in their interpersonal relationships? So if they've learned the story that I'm a good listener and supportive, okay, is that you reframe that as a virtue? Does that actually mean that you're immensely passive and don't have any boundaries and take on other people's shit?
Right.
And I think it's usually that. It's the latter that they need to look at, as opposed to like, oh, I'm just a natural empath listener.
I think I shocked that class when I said they were worried about work-life balance and how do I take care of my family. I'm like, it's a job. If you're thinking about your clients after hours, that's an ethical issue. That's a boundary issue. That's a recipe for burnout. And they're like, they really thought they should go home and worry about and pray for their distressed clients. I was like, no. So the question, how do I balance my work life? This is something that's kind of fucked up, that's soaked into the helping professions. I work at the DMV. I work at the post office. I work at the mall. How do I balance life and work? I leave work behind. Mm-hmm. It's harder for us because there is shit to worry about. There is shit to think about. There are higher stakes. But we got to have that firewall between the me time and my professional time.
Yeah, it's it's that emotional residue. And I think when countertransference becomes a part, well, it always is, but when there's like, a strong transference happening, it's even more challenging for that emotional residue to stay in the office.
Oh yeah.
Like if I have, an adolescent that's 12 and looks and sounds and behaves like me when I was that age, it's hard. And then the parents, not able to set boundaries, and it's just a reenactment that I've had. That's going to be harder for me to chisel off or keep in the office than like someone I don't find as naturally relating to.
Right. And that's the self-awareness. I'm thinking about this client. I'm really not.
Yeah, I'm thinking about me.
And that too many people skip that step.
So countertransference too, I think, is like a signal to more healing that I can have.
Oh yeah. And don't shut it down. Don't minimize it. Don't lie about it. Don't refer clients out. But just put a pin in it. Put a little flag. It's like
this is
back to this.
This is a little lighthouse showing me how to find. Oh, this is the thing that I thought was resolved or was healed more, or maybe it was, but that's not how it works, right? You can resolve or heal something, and then the bottom door falls out because you've been exposed to something in your current experience.
Right. I wish we had a rule that your supervisor can't be your boss.
Yeah.
For provisionally licensed folks, I think that should be a mandate. But I think we should be required to have some kind of peer supervision throughout our career.
Yeah. For
Not
sure.
that we're permanently provisional, but even if it's just self-directed, I need a sounding board.
Yeah, I mean, I would go as far to say, as technology advances and like these kind of platforms become more accessible, well, they're accessible, but like people learn more about how to navigate them, that you should be like submitting this kind of stuff to your boards, like hours of like peer supervision or something. And yeah, like people probably wouldn't watch it, but it would at least have that layer of like, okay, like we can't just, put in an Excel sheet that we met for 10 hours this year or something. Like we actually have to submit our supervision.
But what if we had, like, one of the hours is an hour of my clinical work? I have to submit
like a video? Or how would you?
For a license? Yeah, like a video.
Fuck yeah. I think any more data we can provide to boards is better.
Because you could always find a client that would give you permission, to record that, especially if they're not even in the picture, which I don't think they need to be.
Yeah,
necessarily.
it's kind of tough because like all those old videos with what's her name, the Gloria videos.
Gloria.
And there's some newer ones, but like, I have like a family client that I meet with virtually. I'm like, man, that would have been really awesome in a world where this was all recorded and like tabbed and created into like this whole, I guess it wouldn't be a book, but like this whole like program or something, like where it's like there's a start and end of this whole family therapy dynamic that people could like look at and process, conceptualize and observe as like students or even continuing as stuff. But it gets messy, obviously, because of like confidentiality, and is it as a natural of a dynamic if you've already signed off that it's going to be used for like an educational purpose? Like there's a lot of intervening variables.
Like, did she have any idea she was going to be famous for 50 years or more? Every counselor's going to see Gloria videos.
Yeah. Who was her favorite too? Fritz? The confrontational one? I think it was the one that like
I can't remember.
Was pretty confrontational with her. She liked the most. Because I remember... Yeah, I remember fun. Like... Yeah, because whoever showed us that in grad school at the end was like, who do you think Gloria gravitated to the most? And I remember like most of the students being like startled that it was like the one that was more kind of not antagonistic, but like poking at her, like in a
Right.
playful poke.
Mhm.
But I think she liked him more than like Rogers. It was super warm and all that, client centered.
Meet the client, find out where they want to be, and meet them there. It's hard to do. But I need to go
Yeah,
meet a
I'm
sandwich
about
and
to-
get back to work.
I have a session in a little bit too. But yeah, I'll look through this stuff and play around with
Alright.
it, see what I can do with it. But I guess we'll just wait for Melissa to figure out her box, and then we'll do it. But it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just
Yeah.
like Zoom.
All right. What is this? All right, that's our transition. That's the end of the episode. I'm just gonna
Closure or Hollywood
All
clapper.
right.
You got Buddy upset.
Yeah. We'll
What the
talk soon.
hell?
All right. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.